Please subscribe my channel. I never imagined that one angry sentence could completely remove someone from your life. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Sarah, and until last winter, I truly believe my marriage was strong. It might have been a bit worn out, but my husband David and I had been together for 12 years and married for 9. He was calm, reliable, the type of guy who fixed problems instead of talking about emotions. I used to say that his steady nature was what I loved most about him. But over time, I began to feel frustrated by it. The night everything changed was just a normal evening. Bills were on the table, dishes were drying in the rack, and the TV was playing softly in the background. David came home late from the auto shop, with grease under his fingernails and his shoulders drooping. He told me his boss had made fun of him in front of the other workers. I hardly glanced up from my phone. I was exhausted from always starting conversations and tired of what I saw as his lack of action. When he sighed and said he felt unnoticed at work, a sharp feeling rose inside me. I told him he needed to stand up for himself. He said he had tried. I let out a short, harsh laugh and said maybe he just wasn't strong enough to earn respect. The words hit harder than I thought they would, but I didn't stop. I told him he had no courage, no ambition, no presence. I said other husbands didn't let people walk all over them. I said things I can never take back. David didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just became very quiet, as if someone had flipped a switch inside him. He walked past me without saying another word and closed the door to the guest bedroom. I figured he just needed some time alone. The next morning, he left before the sun came up. That evening, he came home, made dinner, and ate it standing at the counter with his back to me. When I asked if he wanted to talk, he said no. He stopped looking me in the eye. If I walked into a room, he would find an excuse to leave. It felt like sharing a home with a stranger who knew all my routines. Days turned into weeks. He took care of the house, ran errands, and kept up with daily tasks, but he completely shut himself off from me. When I tried to say sorry, he replied that he had heard me, then turned away. I started to notice little things I had always taken for granted, like how he used to check the door locks at night, how he warmed up the car for me on cold mornings, or how he would hold my hand in crowded places. All of that disappeared, quietly taken away. I told myself he was trying to punish me. I told myself he was making too big a deal out of it. But every time I tried to get a reaction from him, it didn't work. Anger would have been easier to handle. His silence felt careful and exact. One evening, I followed him into the garage and stood between him and his workbench. I asked if he even loved me anymore. He looked at the wall over my shoulder and said, "Love can't survive contempt." Then he picked up his tools and walked around me as if I wasn't there. That's when real fear started. I realized I had attacked something deep and personal, something men don't often show. I had made fun of a part of him that already felt weak. I kept replaying that night in my mind, wishing I could take the words back. I left notes for him. I made his favorite foods. I cried when he couldn't see me. Nothing changed his reaction. The turning point came when my sister came to visit and saw the tension right away. She pulled me aside and asked what I had done. When I explained, she went silent. Then she said, "Men can forgive a lot, but humiliation hurts more than anger." That night, I found an envelope on the kitchen table with my name on it. Inside was one page in David's neat handwriting. He wrote that he wasn't leaving the house yet, but he was finished being viewed the way I had seen him. He needed space to remember who he was without my words echoing in his mind. I sat on the floor and finally understood that my insult hadn't just hurt him. It had changed our whole marriage. I didn't know if there was any way to fix it. I slept on the couch that night, listening to his steps moving through the house like a path I no longer understood. Every sound reminded me that damage isn't always noisy. Sometimes it's careful, lasting, and caused by your own actions. I waited in the morning, hoping for forgiveness, but the man who wouldn't look at me had already left me in every important way long before I was ready to face the truth. The sadness came, but it brought no comfort. David continued moving through the house with the same calm routine. Showering, getting dressed, making coffee, never once meeting my eyes. I watched him from the doorway like an unwanted visitor. When the door shut behind him as he left for work, the quiet felt even heavier. I realized I had mistaken his distance for meanness. It wasn't. It was him protecting himself. I took the day off from work and sat by myself, facing truths I had ignored. I had wanted David to be louder, more outgoing, more forceful, but I never asked why he wasn't that way. I had compared him to other men I only saw in bits and pieces, their confident smiles and outward strength, without knowing their hidden struggles. By doing that, I turned a man who had loved me faithfully into a simple stereotype, then insulted it. That unkindness was mine alone. By the third day, the house itself seemed to blame me. Every item held a memory. The jacket he used to put over my chair when I was cold, the coffee mug he bought because it reminded him of a vacation we shared, the loose screw he had meant to fix. I understood then that contempt doesn't appear all at once. It builds slowly, fed by impatience and comparisons, until it turns into words. And once those words are out, they change everything they touch. When David came home that evening, I didn't block his way or force a talk. I simply asked if we could sit down together, and if he said no, I would accept it. He paused, then nodded once. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, with a wide space between us like a boundary. I told him I now understood that I had attacked his dignity, not just his actions. I said I felt deep shame. I didn't beg for forgiveness. I told him I knew I didn't deserve it automatically. He listened without stopping me. When I was done, he took a deep breath and finally looked at me. His eyes weren't full of anger. They were weary. He said he had spent weeks hearing my words over and over at work while driving in quiet times. The worst part wasn't the insult itself, but realizing I saw him the way he worried others might. Weak and unimportant. He said something inside him shut down that night to guard what was left of his self-worth. I asked what he wanted. He said he needed to rebuild himself before trying to rebuild us. He wanted counseling, space, time, and real honesty, even when it was hard. He said if we stayed together, it would be slower, calmer, and on new terms. I agreed, knowing that agreement didn't promise we would make it. The weeks after that were difficult and eye-opening. David began therapy. He opened up more there than he ever had with me. I learned to listen without interrupting or trying to change his feelings into something simpler for me. Some nights he slept next to me. Some nights he didn't. I stopped tracking progress by shows of love and started measuring it by growing trust. One evening, months later, we went to a small get-together with friends. Someone made a joke at David's expense. Before I could say anything, David calmly stopped it. No yelling, no showing off, just quiet strength. I saw something firm return to him, something I hadn't destroyed, only hidden. Later, in the car on the way home, he reached for my hand. It wasn't full forgiveness. It was permission to try again. I understand now that being a man isn't about being loud or in charge. It's about staying true under stress, bouncing back after pain, and having the strength to step away from disrespect, even when it comes from someone you love. David faced himself when he stopped facing me. That distance made me face myself too. There were tough moments, days when David pulled back again, when quiet returned and worry came with it. I learned not to push for comfort. I learned that fixing things isn't about big displays, and being sorry isn't noisy. It's steady. It appears quietly each day without needing praise. That lesson changed me more than any sorry ever could. Growth doesn't erase the hurt, but it can create something stronger in its place. I hold on to that truth now, knowing love only lasts where respect is guarded. And that guarding starts with self-control, humility, and the readiness to examine yourself before asking anything of someone else.